So today we're talking about cognitive distortions. So when you're doing the process of healing from complex trauma, from anxiety, from depression, from low self-worth or low self-esteem, you have to be able to do a deep scan of your subconscious mind to understand the way that you're thinking and the way that you're believing. Because how you think and what you believe informs your behavior. How you think and what you believe informs your behavior. And so we really learn to do and become what we focus our mind on. And so since everything really comes back to that birth point of your beliefs and your way of thinking, if you have cognitive distortions, you could really find yourself in a world of trouble. For instance, a cognitive distortion would be gravity does not exist. It is simply believing something that's not true or that would not be generally helpful for us. Certainly, someone would say you're suffering from a mental illness if you believe that gravity was not real. As a result, your way of thinking would become disordered. You would begin to think things like, I could probably fly. I could probably float. If I jumped off of that ledge or that building, I would not be harmed. Then your behavior would become disordered and you would do something to put yourself in danger because you are unable to recognize the world the way it really is. That's cognitive distortion. And that's the danger of having a negative distortion. The reality is, though, all of us have at one time or are currently suffering from negative distortions. So I don't want you to have any shame if today you realize, yeah, I think I do have some negative distortions. I think I am suffering from cognitive distortion. I want there to be no shame. Everyone suffers from distortions. But as you cure your distortions, as you heal them, you will heal also your mental illness and the symptoms therein. Yes, because your anxiety and your depression and your low self-worth and low self-esteem comes back to the distorted way of thinking and perceiving yourself and the world around you. And I'm going to demonstrate this in detail for you today, so you can really understand how to heal yourself. And if you need assistance, of course, you have Marissa or myself. You have the healing course that's on the website. And you have, we must be up to about 80, 90 YouTube videos that are on the YouTube channel. Utilize these tools, these resources, most of which are free. Use them to help you in your healing process. You can heal yourself from your PTSD. So I did not discover cognitive distortions. But what I did do is I organized and categorized all of the various cognitive distortions down into three main categories to make it easier for us to remember. And it also makes it easier for me to train therapists to be able to recognize cognitive distortions in their clients faster. So if you're a therapist and you're in my training program, you're on this call, I'll be utilizing this discussion here as a part of your training so that you can recognize cognitive distortions faster. And if you're not a therapist, I'm letting you in on exactly what it is we learn and how it is we work so that we're able to help you to get out of feeling stuck and having twisted thinking and get into a place of mental peace, mental calm and control, and emotional peace. So definitely grab your pen, grab your notebook if you can, so that you can take notes on these cognitive distortions. And I'm going to bring up a visual for those of us in the room to make it a little bit easier. Can everybody see that? So this chart separates cognitive distortion into three main categories. So the first category I call I make the rules, which is basically emotional decrees and judgments. The second category is nothing in moderation, which is essentially extreme thinking. The third category is all is bad, which is essentially negative filtering. So let me explain what these are so that you understand them. And what I want you to do with your notes today, if you want to write all this down, you want to create your own little chart, cool. Especially if you're a therapist, then definitely you're going to have to. But if you're just working on trying to heal yourself, what I want you to pay attention to is the distortions that you may have that may be driving your anxiety or driving your depression or your low self-worth. So this first one, I make the rules. This category here, decrees and judgments, is basically a category of thinking where we mistakenly, Marissa, are you able to let those people in the room? There's a few people waiting there. Where we mistakenly put ourselves in a position of being able to decide who and what is real, true, valid. So we're making decrees and judgments of people, of thoughts, of our feelings. So let me give you some examples. Blaming is putting yourself in the judgment seat. So when you blame other people, that person made me mad. That person is the reason I can't blah, 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 blah. And you put blame on other people, especially for the way that you feel. That's a cognitive distortion because other people are not to blame for the way that you feel. But some people are the opposite, where they put blame on themselves for everything. So no matter what happens, they always think it's my fault. And so you may be suffering from depression, but it's because you're putting the blame on yourself. So you say, my family is still not out of poverty yet. That's all my fault. Well, that's not totally fair, right? Because you don't have total control over everything that happens regards finances, economy. So we have to learn to balance where we're not blaming ourselves for everything, and we're also not blaming someone else for everything. That would be an example. All right, you're still with me? So another example of these decrees and judgments is the fairness and rewards fallacy. Pay attention to this. This is one I suffer from. It's the fairness and rewards fallacy. So the fairness fallacy is that everything in the world should be fair. So you drive yourself into anxiety and depression when you see or feel or hear somebody or something in the world isn't fair, isn't right. So you get passed up for a promotion at work and you say, well, that's not fair. He hasn't been there as long as I've been there. It's cognitive distortion. Why? Because everything's not fair. We do not live in a world where everything is fair. Believing that everything is supposed to be fair and that you are waiting in expectation of fairness is just like believing that gravity is not real. So we have to change our thinking to actually bring it down into balance, into reality of the world that we actually live in, of the universe we're actually in. Things are not fair all the time for everyone. So we don't want to fall into fairness fallacy. The one I suffer from is what's called the heavens rewards fallacy. The heaven's reward fallacy is where you believe that because you do good or because you make a sacrifice, you will be rewarded. And so when you do good or you treat someone well or you really pour into someone, some of you have ex-boyfriends where you were doing everything for them. You were just always there for them. You were right there. You got ex-girlfriends and you just provided so well and you were buying everything. You were the perfect guy. And then what do? They cheat. They leave you. They treat you like trash. They verbally abuse you. And then what do? Oh my gosh, I don't understand. I just don't understand. I just don't understand. It just doesn't make sense. I just don't. And we drive ourselves into depression or anxiety. Why? Because we have a heaven's reward fallacy where we think that just because we've done well or we've done good, then good things are going to come upon us. And we are going to be rewarded for our hard work and our sacrifice. It doesn't always work that way. Hard truth. We don't live in a world, we don't live in a society where everyone is properly rewarded for the good and properly punished for their bad. Doesn't work that way. So we have to accept the way it really is. It's not always going to work out the way it should. Another example is emotional decrees. Emotional decrees is where you say, I felt it, so it must be true. So it's like, well, I feel like you're spying on me, so it must be true. I feel like they held me down on purpose, so it must be true. This is another example of cognitive distortion. When we feel something, it doesn't make it true. I feel fat. Everyone says I'm not fat, but I feel fat. Feelings are not facts. You cannot just make decrees into the universe and say this is true just because you feel it. Does that make sense? That's cognitive distortion. Another example, should statements. Should statements. We like to make rules, right? So we think that the world is supposed to be according to our shoulds. So we say, you should be kind to me since blah, 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 blah. Or here's a big should statement. At 45, I should already have a car, have a house. Who made that rule? You did. And then people call up their friends or they call me and they're like, Roman, isn't it true that by now my boyfriend should have already proposed? The shoulds are you making rules. You are making the rules. You have to let go of should statements. We do not live in a universe controlled by the rules that you've made up or that you learned from your mom in childhood and the shoulds. By a certain age, you're supposed to have this, and by a certain time, you're supposed to do this. The shoulds are cognitive distortion. They're not aligned with the reality. So that's the I make the rules category. This middle category here, nothing in moderation, extreme thinking. Psychologists have noted just about everyone who's suffering from mental illness also suffers from extreme thinking, right? So here's an example of extreme thinking. Overgeneralization. You get burned by one guy, you say, all men are trash. That's overgeneralization. Why? Because one man treated you badly. Now you said all men, you overgeneralized and said all men are trash. Or you say all women are liars. Why? Because you had one that was a liar. That's overgeneralization. Then you have the opposite of that, which is personalization, where you bring everything down into into being personalized to you, right? It's I must be the problem. A common one is, it seems like since most of the people in my life don't stick around, there must be a problem with me. Well, that's a distortion, friend. Most of the people in all of our lives don't stick around. People move in and out of your life. They're in, they're out, they're here, they're there. Family members have falling outs. Family members get distant. They don't talk to you. Your friends drift apart. That's normal. But when you have this distortion, you're personalizing it. You're saying, it's just me. I'm the only one who's going through this. I must be the problem. You just assume that you're the problem. Have you ever done that? You walk into a room full of people, and then everyone's kind of got a weird look on their face, and then you look down at what you're wearing because you assume it must be you. Why has everyone got a weird look? Or everybody gets up and leaves, and you assume it must be you. But a lot of times what you realize is it's not always you. They all actually just had a conversation and decided they're all going to get up and go. You just happen to walk in at the wrong time. Or someone else said something crazy and they all have that look on their face. It's not all you. We have to learn to not personalize everything, how to externalize a little bit more if we're personalizers. Another extreme thinking, catastrophizing. And by the way, I just like put this together right before our meeting today. So I'm going to put this in the book, but I'll clean it up. And if there's any grammatical errors, just be patient with me. I didn't have time to make sure everything was perfect here. But catastrophizing is the what if scenario. You're looking at your beautiful baby in the crib, and then you think, oh, but what if it gets sick? Oh, but what if someone comes in here and tries to steal it? Or you're driving down the road and then you think, oh, but what if someone comes and swerves into my lane and crashes me? And everything is, you take it to a catastrophe. You're catastrophizing. You call your son on the phone, it goes to voicemail. And what does a catastrophizer say? Oh my God, what if he got in a car accident? What if he's gone? What if he's kidnapped? What if it's and you go to all the worse. And you wonder why you have anxiety. It's because we're in cognitive distortion. We're catastrophizing. We're always going to the worst. The thought process here of the subconscious, and forgive your subconscious mind, it assumes it's keeping itself safe. So it's trying to keep you safe. So it says, hey, if I just think of all the worst scenarios, then that's going to keep me safe. But it doesn't work that way. Don't catastrophize. That's a distortion. Another extreme thinking, perfectionism. Do you know any perfectionists? I can almost hear the pen scratching around the world right now. Yes, perfectionism is a cognitive distortion. It has to be done right. I have to do it so that it's perfect. I always get A's. It has to be. The perfectionism is a distortion. It will lead you to anxiety. It'll also lead you to procrastination. Why? Because you're taking everything and you're making it such a big project. Because it always has to hit this high standard that you set for yourself. And then you create this expectation where everyone around you is expecting you to always get everything up to the highest possible standard. And it gets you to the point where you don't even want to do it at all. Because you're a perfectionist, so now you become a procrastinator. And now you're the opposite of everything you really want to be, which is you wanted to be great, you wanted to get everything perfect and please everyone, but now you're disappointing everyone because you don't get your stuff done on time. And you really drive yourself up the wall because you have to get it all done at the last minute, but your standards are so high. How are you going to get it all done at the last minute and get it perfect? Whew, that exhausted me just talking about it. So we have to let go of perfectionism. How do we do that? Become an imperfectionist. Learn to love and embrace doing things to about 85% of your effort. You want to put in about 85% effort on anything. You don't need to strive for perfection. So this last category here, this is the all is bad category, right? So the all is bad thinking is negative filtering. So this is super common, right? Negative filtering is where you push everything that's positive out and you only take in the negative. So people do this with themselves a lot. Like if you tell them something negative, they'll believe it, they'll accept it. Yeah, you're right. I probably am. Yeah, I do need to work on that. And you try to tell them something positive, and in their minds, they negatively filter. And they filter out your positive. They say, yeah, he's probably just telling me that so he can get something. You give them a compliment, and they're like, oh, yeah, right. You try to say, hey, you're really pretty. And they're like, yeah, right. Then you say something negative, like, hey, you could really use to be more organized, and they're just bringing that into their soul. Oh, yes, that's so true. I am so disorganized. That's negative filtering. You got to switch that around. That's cognitive distortion. You need to learn to positively filter. You got to remember and bring into your soul when someone tells you you're pretty. You just got to be like, yes, I love that. I'm going to take that and go with that today. And then when they criticize you, you got to kind of minimize that a bit and say, okay, well, we all got things to work on. Well, does that mean that we should never take negative criticism? No. Or that we should be narcissistic and vain? No. So the whole idea here is we don't want to go to any extremes. We don't want to go extreme to the right. We don't want to go extreme to the left. So how do we balance this? Your filter should allow in as much positivity as possible so that 85% of your thinking is positive, because we can handle about 15% negative criticism. So only about 15% of your thinking should be negative or critical of yourself. And that's a lot. It's plenty. It's plenty of criticism. You don't need more than that. So the first one under the all is bad negative filtering is jumping to conclusions. This is where you basically predict the future in a negative way. You say something like, well, I would apply for that job, but I wouldn't be hired. If I tried to apply for that, I wouldn't be hired. If I go to that party, I won't be accepted. I was going to do it, but you would have gotten mad. That's jumping to conclusions. You're basically predicting the future. You know how people are going to respond, how things are going to go. And somehow you always predict it to the negative side of things. Another example of the all is bad mentality is mind reading. Too much of this going on. I know everyone here is just judging me. Nobody here actually likes me. What you're doing there is you're reading people's minds. You're somehow saying, oh, I know what people are thinking. Or they say, I really like you. You're a good friend to me. And you say, you don't really mean that. As if you can read into people's hearts and intentions. So you already know what they're thinking and feeling, even though they're telling you something different. We have to stop. We can't mind read. And it's always to the negative. We never say, I bet everyone in here loves me. No. It's always, I bet everyone in here thinks I'm dumb. I bet you think I'm an idiot. It's always with the negative filtering. So we have to stop mind reading, stop assuming and pretending like we understand and know what people are thinking and what's in their head, because we don't. Discrediting the positive. So someone tells you something good about yourself, and you're just like, yeah, but, and you discredit their positive statement. So they say, you know what, you're really smart. And you say, yeah, but I got a bad grade on my test in third grade. Are you one of those? Every time someone says something positive, you discredit the positive. Hey, wow, you won the Nobel Peace Prize. Yeah, but I'm still single. So you actually discredit the positive, or you discredit the person who's giving you the positivity. Well, you would say that since you're just blah, 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 blah. Oh, he would say that. Or sure, I won the Nobel Peace Prize, but I darn near cheated to get it. We have to stop discrediting the positive, absorb the positive. We need as much of that as possible. And the last one here is extreme language. Saying I never, or bad things always. When you're in the evers and the nevers and the always, you're using extreme language. And extreme thinking, extreme ways of speaking to yourself and speaking to your subconscious leads to extreme feelings. Remember that. Extreme thinking leads to extreme emotions. So we have to get good at being able to stay balanced. And by the way, one more thing about this chart here is that all of these distortions you have as a person suffering from CPTSD or someone who may consider themselves an empath, you have some of these distortions, right? And collectively, all CPTSD, all of these distortions are held collectively by the whole collective society of empaths and trauma survivors, right? But here's the thing that's very interesting about this. You share these distortions with narcissists. Those who are suffering from narcissistic personality disorder have these distortions as well. In fact, they've been using these distortions to abuse you and to control you, maybe since you've been a child, or at least as long as you've been in a relationship with them. I'll show you an example so you can understand what in the world I'm talking about here. Look at these quotes up here. I make the rules, nothing in moderation, all is bad. Does that sound like anybody you know? This is the ideology of your narcissistic abusers. Your mom, your dad, your boyfriend, your husband, that narcissist in your life uses these same things to try to control you. The whole idea, like I make the rules, that's the whole way they are, right? They always think that they are right and everything else and everyone else is wrong, right? Like you take the first one on the list, blaming. Does that sound familiar? They are constantly blaming and pointing fingers, aren't they? Never at themselves, of course. The system of rewards and fairness, they're always talking about what wasn't fair for them. So they always put themselves in that victim mentality to try to make it seem like, oh, you know what? It's just so bad for me because I do everything in my department. They're telling you the story. They come up, I do everything in my department. So, and I'm this and I'm that. And do you know, blah, blah, blah. And they're always complaining about how something is not fair or someone failed to recognize them and reward them. The emotional decrees. Well, I feel like you're cheating. This is a narcissist. So you feel like I'm cheating, so that's the basis that I must be cheating on you? Yeah, I wouldn't be feeling that way if you weren't. Right? They got the should statements. They want to control you with the should statements. Well, you should already. You should be. You should. the extremes. They overgeneralize, right? They're going to be the first to say, nobody recognizes my accomplishments. Everybody's been talking to me and they've been telling me they think you're mentally ill. Is any of this abuse sounding familiar? Everybody can tell, hon. Everyone is looking at you and they can tell there's something wrong with you. They use the overgeneralization to trick you. They use personalization in the opposite way to manipulate you into believing they are the solution to all of your problems. You know, if you would just quit your job and you would just move in with me, then I would be able to solve all of your problems that you're having. Yeah, I'm the solution, babe. I'm the solution. I got this. The catastrophizing, they use that to control you. If you dare, blah, 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 then they say, and they give you a catastrophe. They say, I'm going to go over to your favorite beach house and I'm going to tear it down. I will set this house on fire. If you leave me, I will kill myself. They take a catastrophe, they use it to control you. This sounded familiar? Perfectionism, they expect everything to be done at their standard. They expect you to hop, skip, and jump according to the beat of their drum. And they will pick out any flaw in you, any detail. Right? Husbands, if you got the narcissistic wife, she's mad that you work so late. But if you don't make enough money, she's mad that you don't make enough money. It doesn't matter what you do. You're either out working too much, you're away too much, you're away from the family, or you don't make enough money. You don't pay the bills. It's always some level of perfection that you're trying to reach that you can't ever reach. Isn't that interesting? All these cognitive distortions are, and that's why some of us have the distortions, because we were raised by the narcissist. We were raised in a household where the narcissist was training your subconscious mind to think just like this. The negative filtering, jumping to conclusions. What are you hiding? I know there's something. You were doing something on your phone. They just jump right to the worst case scenario. You're cheating, aren't you? You stole, right? They lose their earrings, and what happens? Your narcissistic mom loses her earrings. You already know where that's going. The conclusions get jumped to, and it was you who stole them. You didn't misplay. You stole her earrings. I know it was you. I know it was you. Jumping to conclusions. I know this is probably a bit triggering for some of us as you start thinking about all of the abuse. The mind reading. My mom was the world's worst mind reader. She would look at me and say, this is my childhood. She'd look at me and be like, I know you probably think blah, 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 blah. And she would make up something that I was never thinking. This is 100% wrong all of the time. But she thought she had the ability to read minds. All narcissists do. They think they know. In their minds, they know exactly what you're thinking. They've got your number. All right. Discrediting the positive. You can't have any special occasions that a narcissist will not tear down. You can't have a graduation. You can't get married. There was a video on TikTok. The poor man, he's just trying to get married. He invited his mother. I don't know why he invited her, because she was in the audience and she was speaking up from the audience. She wouldn't even let the bride read her vows. And the vows, the bride said, although both of us are imperfect. Well, and the mom, my son's not imperfect. She couldn't just let them get married. She had to ruin even this special occasion for her son. She's speaking up from the audience. Don't call my son perfect, or don't call my son imperfect. Don't say he has imperfections. They're trying to get her escorted out of there. She wasn't leaving. She wanted to tear down the whole occasion. Any special occasion, they want to start a fight on that special night. It's your reward ceremony for your work. Definitely is going to be a fight. You try to go on a family vacation, definitely it's going to be a problem. There are no positives. It always has to be torn down. You get no positives. And then the extreme language, you always, you never, right? I think you guys get the point. We've covered this very, very thoroughly. So I'll stop bringing you back to thinking about the abuser, and let's go back to ourselves for a moment, because we want to get into healing here and how we heal from having these distortions. What do you do if you feel like you're looking at your list and you got 2 or 3 of these? I saw a couple comments fly in like, hey, I got all of these. That's very humble. But what do you do if you're feeling like you've got some of these cognitive distortions and you're suffering? Likely, if you have these distortions, you definitely are suffering from some type of psychological pain, some type of anxiety, some type of depression. You can't suffer from these distortions and feel no pain, because your emotional system is designed to interact directly with your mental perceptions. So if you're perceiving things in the extreme and you're perceiving these things from a distorted perspective, it's going to distort your emotions. So how can you get relief? Well, the good news is it's not too hard to do. You can get relief by retraining your subconscious mind. That's where all these distortions are stored. Your beliefs, your way of thinking, your behavior all stems from what you've got stored up. They're programs in the subconscious mind. It's best to think of the subconscious mind like a computer, because that's what it is. It's a little supercomputer, and it is fantastic. But if we don't learn how to reprogram the subconscious mind, then that subconscious mind will actually control us in a negative way, because the subconscious mind's tied in with the emotion. So we're going to become controlled by our emotions. We're going to be living in a constant state of fear, panic, and sadness and anger. But when we reprogram the subconscious mind, that little supercomputer, with programs that are beneficial for us, with cognitive realities, balanced thinking leads to balanced emotions. Is it that simple? It is that simple. Okay, but how do you do this? How do you reprogram your subconscious mind? Because everybody's talking about reprogramming the subconscious mind, and it sounds good, but how do I actually reprogram the subconscious mind? Like, what is the actual process of reprogram? Go on my YouTube. I have a video right there I just uploaded. I'm in a blue shirt, and it says, how to reprogram your subconscious mind. Watch the video. In it, I show a video, a YouTube of a man who did 20 minutes of meditation to create a neural pathway in his brain that would allow him to ride a bike where the steering was backwards. The people who did not do the meditation were unable to learn how to ride the bike any sooner than 6 months. One man trained himself in 20 minutes. Go watch the video. It's right there in full color, HD. Watch it. Reprogramming your subconscious mind or training the subconscious mind is a lot like training an animal. You need patience and you need repetition. Patience and repetition. That's how you retrain your subconscious mind. See, that's not so hard. You can do that, right? If you can train a dog You can certainly train your own subconscious mind, patience and repetition. Well, how do you do that specifically? So let's say you have one of these negative distortions that you're working on. You say, blaming. I tend to blame. In my head, I tend to blame people, or I tend to blame myself. How can I use patience and repetition to train myself not to do it? Simple. When you notice you're doing the distortion, you have to stop yourself and turn yourself around. But it comes down to you making a decision and writing the program in the first place. You do that just by speaking directly to yourself. Mentally, you can say it out loud, or you can just say it in your mind. Tell your subconscious mind exactly what you want. It would sound something like this. You know what? I don't want to blame people anymore. I need to take responsibility for what happens. Or, you know what? Subconscious mind, I don't want you self-blaming. I want you to be balanced. Take responsibility, but also realize everything is not your fault. Just like that. You just tell your subconscious mind that. One good time. Well, what difference is that going to make? It puts a little flag, a little marker on that scenario so that you'll notice it when it comes up. When it comes up, your subconscious mind is going to ping you. You'll be blaming, and you'll realize, oh, I'm blaming. And then you use your repetition. You know what? I don't want to blame others. I just want to be balanced. I don't want to blame myself. I just want to be balanced. You're just going to do that every single time it comes up. Should you be upset? No, don't be upset when you notice there's a distortion. Calm, patience. Just like when I train a dog, it doesn't help for me to yell and be mad at the dog. The anger is not helping in the training process. I told you, sit down. Why won't you sit? Don't do all that. What's that going to do? It just agitates the dog. If the dog is agitated, the dog is not in a learning state. Brain waves are not at theta, right? So we got to get the dog to be in a calm state, in a calm, submissive state. And we authoritatively tell the dog what we want it to do again and again and again and again. Repetition. This is how you do it with your brain. Same thing. You notice yourself blaming again? Be patient. Don't be angry. Just, no, I don't want to do that. I want to be balanced. I'm blaming again. I don't want to do that. I want to be balanced. I'm blaming again. I don't want to do that. I want to be balanced. And then what will happen? This is my promise to you. Your subconscious mind will change and will no longer blame. You can use this for any of the distortions on the list. You can use it for so much more than the distortions. You can use it to learn how to do things, to change bad habits, to overcome so many things. How? By speaking to yourself, which is a meditative process. It's a pause. It only takes a few seconds, but it's still meditation. You say to yourself, I don't want to do that anymore. If you can couple that with a little bit of visualization, where you actually visualize yourself acting properly, you're going to heal even faster. You can retrain your subconscious mind using patience and repetition. Is that clear enough? I want it to be really clear because it's not complicated. This is not something you can't do. I just did this today. There was something I noticed about myself that I didn't like, and I felt like I needed to change. The specific thing was I always burn anything I put in the oven. When I put it under the broiler, I always burn it. Always. The reason this happens, not always, that's an extreme. Often, I often burn it. The reason this happens is because I'm very low anxiety. And see, that has some negatives to it. Because when you're low anxiety, that means you're not super alert and like on top of everything. And so with the low anxiety, it means sometimes, a lot of times, I put something in the oven and I don't stay alert to the fact that it's in the oven and it could burn. I'm not scared because I don't have any anxiety. I just simply put it in the oven, go about my work, and guess what happens? I burn it. And then I have to walk in the kitchen when I smell the burning smell. I'm like, and I pull it out of the oven and it's black. I take it out and I throw it in the trash and I open up a new one and I start again. I don't get upset because I understand. I don't want to punish myself. I don't need to go into negative emotion because I don't want to disturb my peace. I love my mental and emotional peace. I don't want to disturb it. But like I said, being so low anxiety, it can have some negatives too. So I realized today, I said, I didn't get upset. But I said, you know what? I feel like I'm starting to waste food here because I'm actually making food, burning it, having to toss it out, and having to start over. I don't want to do that. So at a certain point, now this is violating one of my values. So I got to harmonize this. Now, what do? Well, I just have to retrain my subconscious mind. How do I do that? I did it right there on the spot. So I got everything together. I put the new meat into the oven. I was making sausages under the broiler, by the way. I put it in there. And then I just said this to my subconscious mind. I said, you need to have more anxiety about food when you put it in the oven. Just like that. Did you all hear that? I said, you need to have more anxiety about food when you put it in the oven. Just like that. How was I speaking to myself? Was that angry? Was that mean? Was that self-deprecating? No. It's the same way I would talk to my son. It's the same way I would talk to my dog. Kindness, love is there. Firmness, authority is there. Authoritative. This is what I need you to do. What did my subconscious mind do when I said that? My subconscious mind was like, anxiety? I could do that. No problem. And then I sat down and I got on the phone with a therapist and we were working through a problem. I should have been distracted by the problem we were working through so that I would again burn the sausages. Do you think that I burnt the sausages? Of course not. Why? Because I told my subconscious mind what I needed it to do. And my subconscious mind gave me just enough anxiety to keep me alert to the fact that I had meat in the oven. And so I got up and I checked it, and right on time, right when I checked it, it was perfect. It was perfect. You can do this. You can just inform your subconscious mind what you need it to do. And the more you exercise your neuroplasticity, the easier it becomes to control and instruct your subconscious mind.